So, you buried a compost pot in your bed, filled it with scraps, and thought you were building soil life. Meanwhile, your earthworms packed up and moved out. That's not bad luck. That's biology reacting to imbalance. I've dug into beds where gardeners swore they were feeding the worms, only to find sour, anaerobic pockets around the pot, and almost no worm activity within a foot of it. If your worm population is dropping, your soil system is telling you something. Farm logic. If you care about growing real food and not just following trends, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel. We test these systems in actual beds, raised boxes, and controlled environments, not just theory on paper. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside that compost pot. When you sink a bottomless pot or drill-holed container into your garden and start dropping in kitchen scraps, you're creating a concentrated decomposition chamber. That can work. I've used in-ground composting successfully in sandy soil, where nutrients leach quickly. But if you overload that pot with wet, nitrogen-heavy scraps like melon rinds, coffee grounds, and vegetable peels without balancing carbon, you create a low-oxygen environment. Earthworms are not fans of anaerobic rot. They want moist, aerated organic matter that's partially decomposed. When scraps ferment and go acidic, especially if pH drops below 5.5 in that pocket, worms avoid it. I've measured it. The soil 12 inches away from an overloaded pot can sit at pH 6.5, while the immediate ring around the pot dips sharply and smells sour. That's why your worms are fleeing. Here's what most people won't tell you about pot composting. It's not a trash chute, it's a controlled micro-reactor. If you don't manage moisture, carbon to nitrogen ratio and volume, you turn your bed into a localized swamp. In one of my 4x8 raised beds, I installed two 8-inch diameter pots spaced evenly. The first season, I treated them casually and dumped scraps daily. Within 6 weeks, worm counts around those pots dropped noticeably. The soil felt sticky and compacted. The next season, I ran it differently. Every time I added 1 part kitchen scraps by volume, I added at least 1 equal part dry carbon material, shredded leaves, chopped straw, even torn cardboard. If I added 2 liters of vegetable scraps, I added 2 liters of dry browns. Then I stirred the top layer inside the pot with a stick to introduce air before covering it. The difference was immediate over the next month. Worm castings increased around the pot perimeter instead of disappearing. The soil texture improved instead of clumping. Moisture is the second mistake. Most gardeners assume the bed's irrigation will regulate the pot. It won't. That pot holds material differently than surrounding soil. Too dry and decomposition stalls. Too wet and it goes anaerobic. I aim for the contents to feel like a wrung-out sponge. When I squeeze a handful, it should hold shape but not drip. This is where monitoring stops being optional. I regularly check soil moisture and pH around compost pots using the Yamron 4-in-1 soil moisture meter. It measures moisture percentage, soil temperature, pH, and sunlight intensity. I insert the probe about 4 inches deep, wait around 10 seconds, and take readings in at least 5 spots around the pot. Averaging those readings gives me a real sense of what's happening in the root zone. The large backlit LCD makes it easy to read, even in early morning or late evening light, and it runs on 4 AAA batteries. It's lightweight, about 120 grams, and the angled head design means I don't have to crouch awkwardly to see the display. The link is in the description if you want to check your own beds instead of guessing. Now let's address placement, because that matters more than people think. In a small backyard garden, I place compost pots at least 12 inches away from heavy feeder root zones, not directly under tomatoes, not jammed next to pepper stems. Roots will grow toward nutrient sources, but if that pocket goes anaerobic, you're inviting root stress. In a 4x8 bed, 2 pots placed roughly 1/3 in from each end works well. In raised beds under 12 inches deep, be cautious. Pot composting in shallow beds can overwhelm the limited soil volume. I've found it performs better in beds at least 16 inches deep, where there's enough buffer soil to absorb nutrient flux. So let's talk about smell, because honestly, smell tells you everything. Healthy in-ground composting, well, it smells earthy. Sometimes it's even slightly sweet, but if you detect a sharp, sour odor, you're actually dealing with anaerobic fermentation. Worms, by the way, sense that long before you do. When I detect that smell, I immediately add dry carbon, mix the top layer to introduce oxygen, and yeah, I stop adding new scraps for at least a week. Temperature is another overlooked factor, you know. Active decomposition generates heat. If the center of your pot is consistently above 32 degrees Celsius, especially in warm climates, worms will avoid that area. Using the soil temperature feature on the meter, well, that really helps track this. Ideally, you want moderate warmth, not those sudden heat spikes. There are trade-offs with pot composting. The advantage is localized nutrient delivery and reduced need to turn large compost piles. The disadvantage, though, is concentration risk. You're compressing decomposition into a small cylinder. That demands balance. So, for growers working in hydroponics or cocoa systems, pot composting doesn't directly apply, but, well, the lesson does. Concentrated organic breakdown in a confined root zone without oxygen leads to root stress. I've seen similar patterns in, poorly aerated organic hydro setups. The principle is universal. Biology needs oxygen. Here's what actually works best in my experience. Add scraps no more than 3 times per week instead of daily dumping. Maintain a 1-to-1 ratio of greens to browns by volume. Keep moisture consistent but not saturated. Stir lightly when adding material to prevent compaction. Monitor pH monthly. If it trends downward sharply, increase carbon input and reduce acidic materials like citrus. And don't expect worms to live inside the pot full time. The goal isn't to trap them. The goal is to create a nutrient-rich halo around the pot where worms feed and deposit castings in the surrounding soil. When managed properly, I've seen noticeable increases in worm activity within a 12 to 18-inch radius of the pot after about 2 months. The soil becomes darker, crumbly, and, just more resilient. Overall, plants show steadier growth rather than those sudden nutrient surges. If your worms are fleeing, the system is imbalanced. It's not the concept that's broken, it's the execution. Serious gardening means observing, measuring, and adjusting, not assuming. If this helped you rethink how you're running your compost pot, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel. Share this video with another grower who wants healthier soil biology and better harvests. The more we understand what's happening below the surface, the better food we grow above it.